bringing the horses out to the field where, in my mind, they're designed to be. They're designed to eat the beautiful grass and to run and be, wind in their mane and hair.
Hmm.
And they both ran back to the barn. We had two horses at the time. They both ran back to the barn. They were terrified of the field in front of them. And so, as a kind of a metaphor, I think, God spoke to me that day and said, "When have you done this to me? When have I given you opportunity that you were prepared for and designed for, and you turned and went back to what you knew?"
Digital Audio Health by Simatrax.
I'd like to welcome to the show Sandra Dee Robinson, charisma coach. So nice to have you on the show, Sandra.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm so glad that I get to be here. I've been listening to your episodes for a while, and I just love that you go into these, you just follow the flow to places that can sometimes be a little bit unexpected. And I'm a little nervous, but excited.
Yeah, so we're going to have a nice journey together. Can you let the audience know a little bit about your background and take it from there?
Yes, the media gave me the title of charisma coach, which at first, when I first saw it on the screen, I thought was quite funny. But it does make sense. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what I've been doing. So my first career, I started at the age of 11, going way back, where I first stepped in front of a camera to do local commercials and some modeling and things like that. And that continued into getting me into acting at the age of 18, where I moved up to New York City already having auditioned that summer. And I moved up with a job that lasted, that role, actually, I played for 9 years. I played for 6, left, came back. And in the meantime, I worked on other shows. I was very fortunate in my acting career to not have a lot of downtime, except for one span, which was a personal growth opportunity, you could say. And I went several months and I started to panic. And so I went out and thought, I'm going to get a real job. And I went into, I would say, a bit of the corporate world. So I worked in a real estate related field and
Mhm.
um, had to get into sales, which for a girl that didn't have her own sense of personal presence at the time, that's why I became an actor, to hide behind those characters. That
Okay.
was a real awakening, having to be told to leave offices because they had other people in the office that did what I did. And, it was a constant hard rejection and persistence in order to pay my bills, which I did. I actually did well. So I proved
Mm.
to myself that there was more to me than just the ability to act. But from there, I moved into helping people to do videos for their business. In
Mhm.
2010, I started Charisma on Camera, hence the charisma thing comes out, right? And I was working with entrepreneurs, to mostly women entrepreneurs in the beginning, to help them make videos and feel great. And I would say my term then was to help you look and feel like a rock star when you step in front of a TV or video camera. That
Yes.
expanded into helping them speak, keynote, and eventually to lead teams and lead people in real life. So we expanded into leadership. And then in 2018, the pull of my heart to nature kind of brought me all the way around to where I started working with horses and leaders in communities and corporations and businesses, pairing them together to learn lessons from the herd, wisdom from the herd on self-leadership and leadership itself, how to be compassionate and empathetic in the way that you lead, which I think is the new angle, I think, that we are going
Mhm.
with leadership at this time, So I think it's a good thing for the human race that people are interested in that type of work, and I'm just lucky to be part of it. So that's pretty much
Mhm.
it in a nutshell, helping people to find that space where they communicate by their design very effectively and make a difference in the world.
Mhm. So people who don't know about horses and know about how that would help a person get in touch with themselves, because they can't bully a horse. Well, you can do many things that that you think you want to do, but with horses, unless they are wanting to do what you want them to do, um, you're going to have a difficult time. And
Yes.
with leaders, when it's top down, that's sort of the thing that leaders are doing, male or female. right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about some of the things that you would have people do to sort of get in touch with a part of themselves that they may have lost in the corporate world, and then they've come out to a retreat so they could sort of find their way back to that place in themselves where they're working with people instead of making people do what they want them to do.
Right. There's so many things in that question that made me go, yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
One of them, which was towards the end, I remember we said, instead of forcing people or making people do what they want them to do, that is leadership from a dominant submissive,
Yes.
right? That's dominant submissive. That is how people most people will look at horses and what they've seen on TV and in movies, and they go, well, yeah, you get on a horse, you kick it and you make it go, and you put a bit in its mouth and you yank it around like they do in the old westerns, which makes my stomach crawl when I see some of
I
these things.
can't watch it.
And they go, that's what you do, right? To get a horse to move, you kick it, you put a spurs on and you kick it. And I'm like, how would you behave if somebody did that to you? That is dominant submissive. So the second that you get on a horse's back, that is what people would assume the role is, that you are dominant, the horse is submissive. Now, you and I both know, Rhonda, that if a horse decides to, you're off that back as quickly as they can get you off.
Yes.
So you're up there by grace, okay? But at the same time, when we are working with the horses, we do all of our work on the ground. To a certain extent, I have a couple of co-facilitators that will initiate riding. At this point, we don't bring it in all that often. We do most of our work with these leaders on the ground.
Mhm.
And right then and there, the question a lot of people have is when I say, well, we don't ride, and I'll hear back, well, if you don't ride them, what do you do with them? Right? Because we're so programmed to see
Yes.
things in the relationship that we've always assumed they were. So the second that they say that, I said, and there's your first reframe. Here's your first different perspective, your perspective shift on how things need to be. These are people that if I say lay down in your shower, they'll go, what? I mean, just think about something like that. Lay down in your shower. That's weird. It's against the rules, and so when you have somebody that says
Yes.
dominant submissive, it's the only way. I'm like, no, is the only way to take a shower standing up? No, there's a lot of other opportunities. And that's kind of what we show people. We're looking for, and we take the language away, which adds a big challenge because horses don't speak our language. Horses are also very present. We are not, as a species, currently. We are usually expending our energy bucket, thinking about and reliving things that have happened in the past, or contemplating or worrying about things that are going to happen in the future. So we actually, when you said, I think you used the term bring them back. We like to say we help people remember how they're designed, who they actually are, what their actual strengths are, and remember how to use things like intuition. That's one of the things that people do, especially women. I've noticed women will walk in that have been in corporate lives for a while, and a lot of them will say, oh, I don't know how to tap into that anymore. I don't use that anymore. And you and I both know that doesn't go away. You can shut it off.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go away. So one of the first things that we do is we work with people to help them, support them if we have to, but they explore the use of their intuition in choosing their equine partner. We don't choose it. I don't choose the partner for them. And I'll be honest, there are times we think that we know these animals. They all have their own individual personalities, like
Yes.
the other dogs do and all that, right? So when somebody chooses a horse, there are times that, I will inside myself do a little check going, really? Really? That person's going to choose that horse? How's this going to work? And I keep my mouth shut because in the end of the day, God's working something. The energy is going to work out just fine, and they're going to have the exact horse that they need at that time for whatever it is that they're going through. And I just have to trust that part of the process. We do plan the day out, but a lot of it is organic. A lot of it is organic because that's where the beauty of creation actually comes in, where we allow things to happen and let things unfold and then say, what is that all about? and kind of go down that kind of like a good interview, right, Rhonda?
Yeah, that's right. And so do you teach them how to put halters on and lead them and different things like that and brush them, and so that they become more intimate with the horse's personality and the feeling that the horse has? And is it that type of work that you're doing?
Somewhat. We incorporate that somewhat, and that we don't bring in the haltering right away. We bring them in to be around the horse, to be aware of the body language, because that's something that
Yes.
we have lost, right? When you get into speaking, when I'm master certified in speaking presentations, and so whenever I am teaching people, I talk about the real intricacies of body language and how to tell if somebody's paying attention. Well, horses give you really big indications, but we don't know what to look for, and so we train them, like, what are you noticing? How does that make you feel? And then we start to show them by their own observation what that means. Well, I noticed that her ear is going backwards. Oh, okay. Let me tell you what that means. Or what do you think that means? And then they become very aware as they learn what their horse is telling them body language wise, which is how they communicate. They communicate throughout the herd with their energy and their body language. And so in a way, my leaders that come are learning a different language, because our language just doesn't do much of anything in this situation. So they learn something different. And it's through that process that they learn the most. Now, I'll give them a brush, and it gives them an opportunity to, and I jokingly say, I didn't clean my horses today because I knew you guys were coming. So wax on, wax off, and that's not really true. But it gives them the opportunity to experience touch and see how the other sentient being is actually reacting to that. Because just like us, some people like to have their shoulders rubbed, and some people don't like to be touched there at all. Some people love to hug. Some people are terrified of it. So just as we don't know what somebody that we're going into a relationship with likes, we don't know what that animal likes either. And they're able to tell you. So it really helps people to become present in the moment, because you can't be thinking about your to-do list. Your horse is not going to pay much attention to you. They will actually just walk away because they think you're not present. And to them, that doesn't feel safe.
And so when we talk about being present, you were saying about, you can't be thinking about doing your laundry and, running the script in your mind and things like that. But for someone to become present, it's really actually can be a difficult challenge and actually painful for them to be present, be aware, have spatial awareness, because you really have to have spatial awareness with a horse. Yes. And so do you find that they go through a specific process from the time they arrive until the time they leave? And can you describe sort of some of the things that would happen to them during that time?
It's really fascinating. And, just like with anybody that does coaching or develops a process, the process develops kind of as you see it happen. So the first thing that I'll notice, and this has become kind of funny actually, is if we have, especially let's just say if we have a group of women, they'll show up a lot of times in a bus together or in a limo together. And so they've been chatting. So they'll come in from all over. They meet at the hotel. They're chatting. They're doing what girls do. They're like, the vibration and the volume is really high in the conversation. Yes. They're giggling and they're laughing, and they get out, and you can almost feel the electric buzz of the electromagnetic field around them, right?
Yes.
Because my co-facilitators and I spend so much intimate time with the horses that we become almost as sensitive to it as they are. Yes. Obviously not nearly so, but we feel like we are. And so the energy of these women come in, and we start to get them, we're gonna do a tiny bit of paperwork. We could do that online. We do it in person for a reason. Yes. It makes them become very present, that they're signing something that says, is a liability form. You're going in front of animals that could hurt you. Yes. It just, that thing, we haven't had any kind of accidents that happen, but it's something that is required. And it makes them stop and go, oh, it brings them one step to being present. One step. And then we take the back and we set them down. We do a couple of mindfulness exercises and things to make them aware of their environment. So now they're a little bit less talky, still high energy, a little less talky. And now they're aware that there are birds and that there's chickens that are clucking and that there's goats that are making noise and okay, and there's a breeze and I can hear the trees and I can smell the flowers and I can smell some grass that's just been cut. And now they're starting to get a little bit more in the present.
Mhm.
We take them over when they first get there and we do what we call herd observations. So all the horses will be into the arena. We stand with them on the outside of the arena. Without a doubt, we know where those horses are going to be when they first get there, on the other side of the arena. They want nothing to do with the buzz that is still around this group because they're still buzzing. They're calmer and quieter by our indication, by our reading. But for the horses, that energy level is still way high. There's still way too much going on that they don't feel safe. That's kind of the horse's idea of monitoring their situation at any given moment, right? They've been on the earth for millions of years longer than us. And they do that ability, they have that ability to survive because they read their environment really, really well. That spatial awareness you were talking about, they're masters of it.
Yes.
And so if they feel there's any indication that the person that they are closest to is not 100% present and safe, they're just going to go to the other area of the space that they're allowed to go. They're going to the other side of that arena. By the end of the time that we have worked with them, and it's small steps that happen along the way. It's the brushing, it's the being aware of, oh, if I bring my energy down, take a deep breath and relax, really relax. We train people to relax because when I say take a deep breath, most busy humans will raise their shoulders to their ears. That's not a relaxing breath. Okay. So we work on that. Like every one of these things is just reminding them of what it takes to be human. Because I believe that better humans make better leaders, make better parents, make better spouses, make better friends. And that is the ripple effect that we're hoping to create every time that we work with a group, so they go back into their lives and they have a different way of relating to people and communicating. And so by the end of the time that we're here, usually if it's a 2-day or 3-day, I can guarantee that we will have the team of human beings walk outside of the arena, the same place where we started at the beginning. And they will say goodbye to their horses and we will open the doors to the arena so the horses can go back out into the field. They have free access to go wherever they want. They won't leave. They will stand right next to the women and the men that have been there, that have been working on this connection, this communication the whole time. And what I like to point out is that's what the natural world's laws do. So when you are present, you attract, you are in flow, and that means with people as well. And it's, there's also great lessons that come from this as far as like not being offended. I've seen people that go to touch their horse and the horse moves away and they stand there and get angry. Well, obviously, he doesn't like me. She doesn't like me. She's been abused. They create all of these stories around why this isn't going to work out. And then we, kind of encourage them to not think black and white, not us and them, which is what so much of we're doing right now in our society, right?
Yes.
It's not us and them. It's not black and white. What if there was a place in the middle that was full color? And that's what we find. So we find that the horse that didn't want to be touched actually loves to be touched, just not that way, not with a brush, with your hand. Hug on him, love on him, and that horse will follow her all life long. I mean, the connection that happened from that situation was pretty amazing. She didn't need a lead rope to lead him around. He followed her all day long once we got past her initial blockage.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, that's what we do in real life. When people, you're around people and you've said something or whatever, and they find an objection to that. It's based on their makeup and not what was said, and maybe they've misread how it was said. But with human beings, we just get on with it. We don't stop. We don't say, can you please, not very often say, maybe I didn't come across the right way when you see somebody reacting that way. We're too busy. in our life. And so we just keep going. And I really like what you talked about is the sensitivity of the horse and any animal. They always say that, a dog feels a person's energy as well. Well, we, like all animals, feel human energy. That's why they take off, because most of the time, our energy is so far out reaching that I think it's about 9 feet out from us. So they feel our energy sometimes even before they see us.
Sure.
Even show up. And so I really like that you use the word sensitivity but the thing is when you're not in touch with the true essence of who you are and the calmness of that you are, it's really hard to find that unless you're sort of put into a situation like you're providing where the animal is the feedback.
Yes.
And you've paid for this retreat and you're here for this length of time.
Yeah.
And you start seeing how others are starting to connect with their horses. And then it's sort of softens you. So the whole barn or the whole stable ends up softening over a period of time, right? And the horses will almost do anything for you at that point.
They will. And that's where I wish a lot of riders would be humbled enough to learn this, because I think it makes riding safer when you understand the animal that you're asking this connection with to do the things that you're asking it to, whether it's jumping or barrel racing or trail riding, whatever. I think that it's a lot safer to do that in connection and partnership than it is to do the way a lot of people do, the way I started. I mean, when I first got exposed to this type of work, I'll tell you where I came from. My energy was off the charts high, like everywhere. And I had got my own horse, and she was very sensitive. Thank you, God, for the perfect life coach that I didn't know I needed. And I would walk into the barn and I would think, I'm calm, because outwardly I had, stopped moving my appendages. I wasn't jumping up and down. I was perfectly calm. But you see, like, the energy even in my voice. I'm like, I'm totally calm. I don't know why she's reacting this way, right? And, she didn't care about, so much of that my body wasn't moving. It was everything else. And she just would get to the back of her stall and be like, I'll come out if you really want me to, but I don't really want to be with you, kind of thing. And so we had a lot to learn. She had a lot to teach me. I had a lot to learn. And she had to learn that I wasn't going to, attack her or hurt her. And so we had a great relationship. And we actually moved here to this property in Texas so that I could let her run without me having to be on her back. We needed a little property for her to do that. And there's a wonderful story. I actually put it in the beginning of my book, my first book, that about, bringing the horses out to the field where, in my mind, they're designed to be. They're designed to eat the beautiful grass and to run and be, wind in their mane and hair. And they both ran back to the barn. We had 2 horses at the time. They both ran back to the barn. They were terrified of the field in front of them. And so, as a kind of a metaphor, I think, God spoke to me that day and said, when have you done this to me? When have I given you opportunity that you were prepared for and designed for, and you turned and went back to what you knew? And I was like, oh,
wow.
Oops. Yeah. So that moment gave me a lot of compassion, not just for the horses, but for me as well. And there are all kinds of stories of how you can kind of break the spirit of animals and have them think that they're restrained and they have every opportunity to get away, but they've just given up. And I really want to make sure that if somebody is close to doing that, if they end up in anywhere close to me, that they don't. So I learned a lot. In fact, the first time I went to a facilitated event, like the kind that we do, they had a bunch of small ponies, and they said, oh, well, we'd like you to move the ponies, just get them moving. I went, well, I can do that. And, and all of my bullishness, I went off there and said, ah, and they went running like crazy as fast as they could. And I looked over at the facilitators, very proud of myself. I was like, well, there you go. And they were terrified. They're like, yeah, we were kind of thinking walking, like, as little energy that you needed to get them to actually move their feet. I was like, oh, why would you want to do that? Isn't faster better? At least then I had to work to get the poor animals, to even come up next to me. But in the beginning, that was me. I was like, yeah, faster is better, go, yeah, ha, ha, and I wasn't the type that used spurs on my horse, but I might as well have because my energy was just so unregulated, and I had a lot of trauma that honestly I hadn't dealt with, but didn't even know I needed to deal with. And so
Yes.
made decisions and from wrong places. My discernment was not in alignment. I was not reaching that place, as you said, that was calm and knowing who I was. And a lot of that has come from just being around these animals and
Mhm.
then, exploring more of how these species communicate, how other species communicate. I mean, that's my geek zone. That's where I geek out, you know.
Yeah, but you've learned a lot about yourself. And so you touched on something there that I want to discover with you. So you said about making decisions that weren't the right decisions. I'm just paraphrasing. Were you making these types of decisions from your brain or from your heart? Where were the decisions coming from, and how did they work out for you?
Oh, wow. I would say coming from the brain, but with too much emotional input attached to the reasoning for my decision.
Ah,
So, like I'd said before, I like to think we're given an energy bucket, which
yes.
includes our attention, right? And our energy bucket every day we can spend on what's happened in the past, what got
Mhm.
us to where we are, or what somebody said to us, or our previous record of success or failure. And if we focus on that, we're pretty sure to make decisions that are going to create the same thing over again. And that was pretty much how I was doing things. And
Mhm.
so, or it was a reaction of, well, that was painful, so I'm not going to even consider that. When
Mhm.
that thing might have been a great opportunity, but I associated it with a failure that may have resembled the opportunity that I've been given. And so I would walk away. I would shy away.
Okay. Mhm.
So that's what I mean by having energy that is tied into emotion, that is connected to something in the past that I was carrying with me.
Mhm.
And it's not easy to make. It's not, it is, I find that it is less effective as far as making clear decisions when you do
Mhm.
that. So being able to establish being in the now actually opens up the creative pathways in the brain and allows it to reconnect, allows us to connect as a whole. So it's now the heart involved, the body
Yes.
involved, and you're using your mind and not just the reactivity of the neural processes that are going on in your brain that are short circuiting and going, don't do that or do
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. And
make the horses run, kind
yeah.
of.
And lots of times when we have these bad experiences, we were a whole lot younger. And when we're school age, we have no business making those decisions and thinking that we're failures because we didn't do well at, in track or public speaking or any of those things. And so our brain laid down some memories that we kept on bringing back up every time that situation. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm just going to stay away from that, not realizing that that was a teaching moment. And the person, whether it's a school teacher, a parent, or whatever, didn't help you through it because there's a level of embarrassment, attached to this as well, especially if you're, on the basketball team and you're running down the court, you get a breakaway, you miss the basket. You don't know the stats on how many people miss baskets. And so you miss the basket. And so it's just the end of the world, right? And so we make all these decisions when we're way too young. And when we're older, sometimes we don't talk to people about them. And so we start not being expansive with our world. Instead, we start cutting things off so that
Yes.
we protect ourselves. And in protecting ourselves, we lose our life. We lose the joy in life from
Mhm.
that. And
Yes,
so can you
of course.
speak a
Yeah.
little bit more about that? Because this is a real teaching moment for the listeners, because that's a decision that I made when I was way too young to make, but I really want to do that. I really want to get back to that. But it's almost like you have to give yourself permission to go back there, reclaim that and bring it forward and move forward.
Yes. You know, listening to someone just the other day reminded me of there's a question about, well, I guess let me start this over. Listening to someone the other day talk about a similar topic woke me up to something that I used to ask when I spoke. And I haven't had the opportunity to do it for a while, probably a couple of years. I haven't asked this question. But depending on what my topic is in my speech, I will ask the audience, what were you doing when you were 6 years old that made time stand still? And somebody will say, well, when I was 10, I'm like, no, 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 no. 6 years old, 5, 6, like, get it in that range, because that is when we will still have this connection to God. We will still have that wholeness. We will still have a lot of those gifts that we're all born with. And we have that anything is possible. You know, we'll think, yeah, if I want to fly, I can fly.
Yes.
If I want to run faster than a horse, I can run faster than a horse. I mean, we think that everything is possible. It's a really beautiful, childlike attitude to have. And it's something that, you know, even the Bible will say,
Mhm.
there's something about that attitude that is what is going to get you into the next realm, right? To be with God. It's like that's where you're going to see all the beauty that He has for you, is if you're in that childlike wonder. And when you're 6 years old, you do the thing that is going to light you up, in some form, or keep you safe, or both, for the rest of your life. And so I've had people say, "Oh, and I'll just say the first thing that comes to mind, I was dancing." I go, "What do you mean?" "Well, I was dancing. I would put on dance recitals for my family and for the neighborhood." And I'll say, "Are you still dancing?" And if they say yes, in whatever capacity, it could be their job, it could just be that they compete on the weekends, it could just be they go out with their friends, but they will be happier people. And if I hit something, I remember once, the first time that this happened, I realized that I could have a hot button, and now I'm ready for it.
Mhm.
But I'll say, "What were you doing?" She says, "I was singing." "Were you?" "Oh, I sang all the time. My mother says I was born singing." And you could see her light up, you know, her pupils dilate. If you take a really good look at somebody when they're passionate, this is something that I teach when I talk about presentations. Like, if you come from that place of passion, we see and we read the difference in how you are literally looking. And so she's lit up and she's talking about it. And then I asked her the question, "Are you still singing?" And she started to cry.
Mm.
No. And that was a piece of her that was starving. And I said, "You said you were born singing and your family told you this." And she said, "Yes." I said, "You got to find a way to do it." You
Mhm.
know, I pulled her aside later and I said, "Did you go to church?" "Yes." "Okay, great. Do they have a choir?" That's like,
Yeah.
literally start with whatever's available.
Mhm.
Start singing with your radio, you know, like anything, just celebrate that piece that you are being drawn to right now, because that is something that I feel that you should be expressing. And through that expression, you're going to keep your soul and your body and everything happy. And I've seen it. I mean, sometimes it was a brutal wake up call to have somebody start crying the second that I said, "Are you still doing it?" But now it's happened a few times and I'm prepared for it. But
Mhm.
if somebody is feeling that call to something they used to do, I think there's a reason for that.
Beautiful teachings. Beautiful, beautiful teachings for sure. You're listening to Courting Your Soul, whose podcast has been treated with digital audio health by my sponsor, Symetrax. And today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Sandra Dee Robinson, charisma coach. Can you let people know how they can reach out to you?
Oh, sure, that's easy. Sandra Dee, spelled like Sandra Dee from Greece. Yes, I've heard the song sung to me a few times. Sandra Dee, my last name is Robinson, Robinson, just so you would expect. And that is my website, sandradeerobinson.com, which is probably the most solid way that you can get a hold of me, because on there you will see there's an opportunity to get my newsletter. It's free. And it's a way that I actually do communicate. I respond back to people that respond to my newsletter, and it's usually anecdotal and inspirational. That's my focus for it. So if anything is coming up as far as new events, if I'm doing a retreat and there's availability, I will actually let my people in my community know that first, and usually, of course, at a discount. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. And Sandra Dee Robinson, again, is how you find me there.
Mm-hmm. And you also offer coaching as well.
I do, yes. And I
Mm-hmm.
can work with people all over the world. And especially when somebody has an issue of I call it that powerful personal presence, that doesn't seem to be feeling quite right. And wherever it is that they are, I call it being in the spotlight. It could be being on camera, it could be having to speak, but it could also be taking on a new role of leadership and having to lead a boardroom of people when you're, maybe just are not, you're feeling a little out of sorts. Those are the kind of people that I can help. And yes, I work with people in that platform, getting the messaging together, getting their presentations and whatever it is that they need together. And yeah, I can work with people for a matter of a few weeks. Yeah, I can work with them for a couple of years and kind of be their back pocket support whenever they do, want to knock it out of the park, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, you have an extraordinary background to help people. Do you feel that you have been called to your journey, crafted it, or a bit of both?
I would say it's a bit of both. Definitely I would say called because of how I now see the circle of my whole life kind of coming back around. Not that it's closing,
Mm-hmm.
but
No,
I
no.
can see I can see how I've had two passions of studying animals ever since I was the age of 3, which is absolutely true. I was reading books and reading aloud things that were sent from my brother, who was a wildlife biologist at the age of 3 or 4. So studying animals at that age and working with animals in one aspect of my life, and then doing the presentation coaching, because that was something that was so hard for me to learn. So putting those things together now, I think the calling has been to really connect people to God's beautiful design of nature and of how they as individuals are designed, and remind us that we are beautiful as humans if we allow ourselves to be. So I think that is my calling.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you're making a difference in people's lives and going about it in such a soft and gentle way with the horses because they transform and then go back into their place of work. And do they report back to you that they have changed how they're working with other people? Speak about that.
I have a couple of those testimonials on my site, and I love when I get that. I wish I had more.
Yes,
I
we
wish
all
I had
do. Yes.
I mean, we always want that, right? If anybody has a coach or someone, a mentor that you want to give them a testimonial
Yes.
of what has happened once they've finished working with you. And it's sometimes hard to get those, right? So I have had stories of that. I've had people say, they worked with somebody that was difficult and they found a way to actually work with that person and make it a very healthy communication, in that relationship. And so that makes their days a lot easier. They're not as exhausted or feel as threatened when they go into the workplace. And so those things are huge. And if they are in a leadership role, then that actually shows the people that they're leading as well how to handle those difficult relationships. And there will be difficult relationships. That's an opportunity for growth. And I've had several of my own, and I'm very grateful for those difficult times and those difficult people, because I think that they are placed there so that we can better evolve as human beings in the
Oh,
way we
yes.
can.
Oh, yes, for sure. And I find that when people get in touch with their own energy and realize how their energy goes out ahead of them, that they start sort of starting to become more sophisticated with their energy. And
Yes.
I've had some challenges with working with people. And I find that the calmness and not saying too much is actually really beneficial because we love to talk and women love to talk. That's the way we communicate. And it's really hard sometimes to pull it back and just listen. And I don't mean just listen to the voice, but listen to their energy, listen to where they're coming from, and which is all unsaid. And there's so much that we can pick up from people by just being silent and
And,
just
and
be a witness to them, right?
yes, and you're right when you said to pick up what's going on inside of them.
Mhm.
Something as easy as to say, well, if somebody says, well, I am not good at
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Yes.
you know, or I am, and it's something that is a negative nature, right? I've always been prone to whatever it is.
Yes.
Those are indications that a voice told them that, but it's not their voice. And it's in that moment where you said we can finally get that quiet where you can say, whose voice is that?
Mhm.
And it's not that you need to go back and relive what the bully said, what, you know, what your father said, your mother said, or your big sister or whatever, but it's a moment where you go, oh, that doesn't belong to me.
Mhm.
You know, maybe decades that you finally realize that statement does not belong to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we're afraid to go back and take a look at some of the ugly things that were in our lives.
Yeah.
But it didn't kill us then.
Yeah. And
So
you don't
with
have
our
to go
adult,
back. Yeah, you
yeah,
don't have
you
to go
don't
back.
have, and you don't have to go back.
No, there's
No,
no reason. You see these people that come work and you regress back into the trauma and experience it. Why?
don't
Why
have,
would
why
you
would you do
do that?
it? Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
There's ways of processing it without having to go back through the whole thing. And I think
yes,
I learned that because the work that I do with the horses is actually trauma-focused equine-assisted psychotherapy model. That's what I
beautiful.
was trained in. And
Yes,
so that right there in itself was a huge help for me. As I said, I didn't know
yes,
a lot of the reactions that I was having was because of trauma. I just
yes,
thought, well, yeah, those things were really pretty awful. And then, you know, I got around people that were actually in the healing modalities and like, oh, so that was bad. That was bad. Oh, so not everybody had a childhood that really? Oh, oh, okay. You know, which is why when my friends started having babies, they would say, "Do you want to hold the child?" And I was terrified, like absolutely not, you know. Then I thought there's something wrong with me. So there are all of these things that built up over so many years, as it does
yes,
with a lot of people, that there is something wrong. I should want to be around children, you know, but no, I shouldn't. With the background that I had and the mother that I had, it is absolutely not a surprise that that was my reaction. And, you know, now I'm not terrified of children anymore. Like
yes,
it's okay. I actually think they're lovely. I'm fine. But I never did have any of my own. I just borrowed them from other people.
yes. Wonderful, wonderful. And I have noticed that people who seem the least approachable are the ones who have had some very bad things that have happened to them in their lives, right? Sometimes they've lost their husband and it was, it was a long process of illness or something. And they're protecting themselves, they're protecting their emotions and all of that, right?
Yep.
And so, but yes, I'm glad that you're holding babies. But with but with horses, I mean too that they come from trauma.
Most of
Uh,
them.
most of them come from trauma. You wish that all of them, at the time that they were a foal, that they had a kind hand and that they were trained, when they were ready for it and not pushed into it and all that sort of stuff. But, horses that have saddles on their backs that hurt their backs and they end up bucking people off and they end up getting a bad name. And it's just, it's always been a sore spot with me. It's just I've really grieved over the horses that have went through those types of traumas themselves and then have not been rescued, right?
Yes.
They haven't been rescued.
Even the work that we do, we are trained to take care of the horse's mental state as well, which
Yes.
some people don't think about. That
No.
if somebody comes in and they are, as we say, unregulated, which is how
Mhm.
I was, right? When they said, we want to move these horses, and I scared the bejesus out of these things in the beginning, right? They're like running for their life. That is unregulated energy. Okay. I get what that is. That was me. So if somebody has that in some form, if they're hiding trauma or they're just, whatever it is that they have been around this horse and they released that, the horse will sometimes take that on. And
Mm.
so then they don't know how to get rid of that.
Mhm.
And so we actually work with them afterwards and calm them down and get them. So we've had, people that have been, for lack of a better description of this, glommy. Do you know what I mean by glommy?
No.
Like it's they want so badly to connect. They're connecting from their brain, because you asked me earlier, which is
Yes.
decisions from your brain or your heart. So they're connecting from their brain. And I remember one woman distinctly saying, as I walked over, and I had my co-facilitator point out that the horse was shut down, which means they've compartmentalized. We do the same thing when we're doing things that we don't want to do, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Whether it's brushing our teeth or pumping the gas or taking the garbage out, we're just like, okay, I got to do this, right? Or filling out the expense report. Yuck, yuck. But we compartmentalize, forget about everything, do the task and get done with it, right? The sooner we
Yes.
do it, the sooner we're out. And so horses will do this. They're trained to work, and they will a lot of times leave their bodies and compartmentalize, do what they need to do, and then get out as soon as they can. So if you ever had a horse that you
Ah,
took the halter off of and they bolted,
yeah.
they were shut down until the moment you gave them freedom, and they're out of there. So when they
Right.
can't get out of there, they'll just shut down. So one of my co-facilitators pointed out, your horse, that horse over there is shut down. And the woman is thinking completely in her brain, touching the horse across his face and going, I'm so connected. We're so connected. And they weren't at all. At all. And I can see in her relationship with the other women that she had this state that she was in that wasn't really connection, but she wanted it so badly, she was forcing it.
Mhm.
Now, that's not meant in judgment. That's just
No.
where she was at the time. And she was
Yeah.
doing the best that she could with what she had been, what she had, the understanding
Yes.
that she had. But the horse felt like he was being attacked, because that's the glommy energy. She's glomming on. It's like trying to wrap him physically, because the emotional connection was very hard for her.
Mm-hmm.
Very
I
interesting.
get it.
You don't see it all. It's not particularly common, but it can happen. It can actually be played out with people that have sex to feel that connection, but they're not actually connecting.
Mhm. So
It's
it's a
not,
disassociation.
yes.
Mhm.
So when we finished working that day, we had to take that horse and kind of, you know, get him into some deep rest, get him back around the other horses, kind of like get him settled. And you would actually see them take deep breaths and chew, and that's a release for them. That every time that he
Mhm.
would yawn, that's getting the tension in his body out. And so we wait to see all of those things, and then wait to see him graze and interact with the other horses and know that he has
Mhm.
now regulated himself and he is okay. So we have to watch out for our equine partners in this work as well.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I have a long background in horses. I did not know that.
Yeah.
But as you're coloring this for me and the audience, I'm thinking about horses that I've seen, like school horses that, yeah, they just want to, they're almost in a trance. They're
Yeah.
just going through the movements, and the kids are kicking their legs and feet at them. But boy, that was very interesting to hear that. I had no idea.
What's interesting is we've had a couple of those horses show up here.
Okay.
And when a human would walk up to them, they would shut down. They
Mhm.
would stop blinking. All the indications that you had seen, and maybe you didn't
Mhm.
actually recognize at the time, but you
Mhm.
just got the sense that she would, this one horse I'm thinking in particular, she would shut down and she would do her job, and she was very good. And she raced. She was very
Mhm.
good at her job. But the second that you would give her the opportunity to go, she was gone.
Oh yeah.
It took 2 years
Wow.
for her to come around. But when she did come around,
Mhm.
she was one of the deepest connectors. She would
Yes.
sense in people when they were compartmentalizing. It's almost
Mhm.
like when we see in other people what we've recovered from, even if it's like an addiction or something, we empathize and we go, I can help
Mhm.
you through that.
Mhm.
It was almost as if she would attract people that were holding up all of this stuff inside, and she would
Wow.
just stand in front of them and bring them to a state of tears, men and women.
Mm.
She would just lock into them, and they
Beautiful.
could feel that, and they felt safe with her.
Yes.
And she did some of the most impactful work, but when she came, she was totally shut down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. It's pretty amazing what they are able to do. You know, if we give them the opportunity, but like us, if we give people the opportunity to
Mhm.
heal and to be seen and to be heard,
Oh,
you
yes.
take one of those broken down horses from a trail and you actually start to show them. And there's a way that I don't teach this, but there's a way that I communicate with them with body language and pressure points and energy on their body. And I start talking to them in that language. And all of a sudden they turn around, they're like, "You talking to me?" Like, you know, it's like they do the over the shoulder thing. I'm looking around me. I'm the only one here. You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Like, people don't talk to me, you know? And so when they start to realize that somebody's actually trying to connect with them and listen to
Mhm.
them, it's
Yes.
amazing to see it there. It's almost like them being born again, and you
Oh,
see a
yes.
personality start to come out, you know,
Yes.
and we've seen that a few times with some of the horses that we've had here, and the way they've come in and the way they've left has been completely different.
Oh,
You know, if they've
wonderful.
had to leave, some of them have left, some of them are still here, but
Yes.
yeah,
Some of them are still there. Yeah.
yeah.
What extraordinary discovery have you found in your life, Sandra Dee?
Oh, I think one of my favorites is never believe who others say you are.
Oh, I
And
think
I
you
say
should
that,
repeat that because
yeah,
people really need to hear this.
and it will mean different things to different people and different
Yes.
times of their life and different levels of success or failure.
Hmm.
Never believe who other people say you are,
Hmm.
because it doesn't matter. So remember, I worked in an industry where people were successful, sometimes seemingly overnight,
Yes.
became very well known. And I had my share of that for sure. But when people tell you that you're amazing, you're great, you're perfect, you're this, you're blah, 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 take that with a grain of salt. Know who you really are. Know what your actual value is.
Yes.
And I like to say, you know, what is your value in God's eyes? How are you doing? Because that's what
Love
matters.
that. Love it.
That's what matters.
Hmm.
If you have a failure, and we all have failures, if we have things that happen to us, I had a moment that, you know, was my opportunity to learn to not be offended recently. You like
Hmm.
that?
Yes.
It was an opportunity to learn
It's
to,
so grown up.
yes, I know. The adulting
Yes.
lesson. But it was brought into my world for that specific reason, and I'm so grateful for this woman, because she's, you know, something out of context and I thought embarrassed me, you know, took my name to a very nasty place, and I was very upset by it. And then I stopped and I realized, you know what? That's who she says I am.
Hmm.
Do I believe that? No. Well, why would I care?
Hmm.
God doesn't believe that. I don't believe that. She can say all that she wants. All people need to do is look at what I'm actually doing. And if I don't
Yes.
react, karma, whatever, is going to come back to teach her the lesson
Oh,
that
yeah.
she's going to end up paying for what she's done. Not my fault, not my judgment, but
Right.
I'm going to be okay.
Yes.
And that was, I think, a great lesson and a great reason to not believe who other people say you are.
Hmm. Yes. And, when I wrote my book, it was based on being T-boned. And I was T-boned at 55 miles an hour. I didn't have a broken bone, not a scratch on me. They had to remove me from the vehicle, but
Wow.
I started writing in sort of like a trance like thing, because in recovery, I still had recovery time because was hitting my head on the seat rest. And I had seatbelt trauma as well. And so I started to write, and I was able to connect things in my past that I hadn't previously even thought about. And so the words called like synchronicity and intuition and all of these things, that I was just busy with my life. And that's why I ended up being T-boned, as I was busy with my life. And I don't know what I could have done differently, because I was hit broadside, but I was ignoring some intuitions and I was ignoring some things. And it was my soul's wake up call to me, because it was like, you need to listen. That happened. I started to write, and I was revealing a lot about my past. And I almost went under a pen name because I didn't want people to know me at that level, because I'm a business person. And about a month before it was released, I just thought, what am I doing? This is my work, right? And I put my name on the book. And so here I am as a podcaster.
Yes.
But, when we don't listen to those messages and when we ignore them, we are going to have some incidences in our life that we can continue to ignore until we get a big wake-up call, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that
very,
accident was your catalyst. That accident was your catalyst.
It's my catalyst.
Yeah.
Yes. So very, very interesting. We've had wonderful conversations, and we could probably talk for a very long time. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to talk about?
Oh gosh, no. It's been really fun. I love that I don't have to come on here and give my five tips for success or anything like that. Hopefully there was some tips in there or some, insights for people. But I love that we did it very organically, and I hope that it resonated with some people that are listening and watching, that they might recognize something in themselves to be able to say, well, there are better ways to do this, because I know that I've definitely been there, and especially if you're the person that likes things done really fast and intensely, there is maybe a better way to not chase the horses till they want to die.
Yes. All I heard in your messages, it was teaching, and so you didn't do it in a 5-step program,
No.
but and they can get that program. You've let them know how to reach out to you. But you've taught a lot of life lessons here, and you're very genuine, and you're just a beautiful soul.
Oh, thank you. As are you.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, I have too. So thank you very much for being on the show, and I hope to catch up with you soon.
Yes. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Theme song for Courting Your Soul is Sun on the Water, composed and performed by John Park Wheeler.